Welcome to the program. We begin this afternoon with news from the National Assembly, and the 11th Parliament resumes its sittings this afternoon on the back of a significant High Court ruling on salaries of members of the National Assembly and senators. Now, the High Court declared the National Assembly and Remuneration Act unconstitutional, citing that MPs and senators should not have the power to set their own salaries. MPs have, however, hinted that they may defy the judiciary on this issue once they resume their sittings. Parliament has a backlog of constitutional bills to be passed before August 27th. Before going on recess last December, MPs and senators worked overtime and hurriedly passed 30 crucial bills, with questions arising as to whether much thought was put into the bills during the short period they came for the debate. Constitution Implementation Commission C.I.C has in the past faulted bills that have been passed by Parliament, accusing the august House of shoddy work. And joining us now from Parliament buildings is our political editor, Ben Kitili, who is following up on Parliament's reopening, and he has more details for us. Ben, what do we expect will be spoken of this afternoon? What debates do we expect to be hearing?
Yes, indeed, Edith. We are coming to you live from Parliament buildings, where in a few minutes the second session of the 11th Parliament will be open. Behind me on the other side of the Parliament buildings, we could see a few minutes ago vehicles with members of Parliament starting to stream in ahead of the reopening of Parliament, which the 11th Parliament opens to a very busy entry, so to speak, concerning the amount of work that awaits them on different fronts. We did attend different parliamentary group meetings yesterday for the two main coalitions in this 11th Parliament, both Jubilee and CORD, and got to hear what they have in plan in this session of Parliament. Key among them is a backlog of constitutional bills of legislation that need to be passed. Key among those are 8 constitutional bills that should be in place by the 27th of August. That is 4 years after the promulgation of the supreme law of this land. And those 8 bills have to be in place in the next 6 months or so. These members of Parliament will be hoping to be able to do this work and do a good job to be able to beat what the Commission on the Implementation of the Constitution has been hitting out at Parliament for not doing. They have accused Parliament of doing a shoddy job concerning those bills. Now, the Jubilee coalition did say they will be pushing in the first sittings of this Parliament to push for the ways of fund regulations that is in conjunction with that promise that was made in the run-up to the 2000 election. The 6 billion Kenya shillings that was saved from the election because there was no runoff after the presidential polls were completed in March last year. They will be looking at that. They will be seeking to set out the framework for this ways of fund regulations. Another thing that they will be hoping to do and to look at is the starting to make the budget process. The budget making process will be beginning concerning it is only about 4 months to the end of this financial year. They will be hoping to be able to push the Secretary of Treasury to be able to start that process. Edith.
Ben, it's good that you've mentioned the budget, and indeed they're going to approve the supplementary budget, which will, among other things, see increments of salaries for teachers, doctors, and other civil servants who are on strike last year. But there's a crucial issue of the senators and also the members of Parliament being unable to increase their salaries. Have you had any chatter outside of Parliament buildings this morning with regard to that?
Well, it is clearly a point of concern. Kenyans will be looking at Parliament as it reopens this afternoon. So just see what will be happening. As you mentioned earlier, this is coming just barely a week after the High Court declared that National Assembly and Remuneration Act unconstitutional, just hitting out at members of Parliament, saying that they have no business whatsoever to determine their pay packs. Kenyans will be hoping to see what happens. There has been talk of both the Senate and the National Assembly planning to use an orthodox method, so to speak, to be able to get around this there is talk of the Parliament hoping to amend Article 260 of the Kenyan Constitution, which makes senators, members of Parliament, and members of county assemblies public officers. That is what there have been reports of the members of Parliament trying to get around that, to be able to amend that article, to be able to make members of county assemblies, senators, and members of Parliament not be public officers, saying that they are doing that to be able to institute the separation of powers to protect the freedom of Parliament. But that will be, Kenyans will be looking at that to make sure that does not happen. That will be a way of trying to beat that declaration by the High Court that the members of Parliament cannot cannot determine their pay packs.
Ben, I'm sorry for interjecting, but we do have to talk about this before we wind up with you. We also expect two House committees to table their findings on the very controversial standard gauge railway tender, of course coming against the back of President Uhuru Kenyatta, saying that it will continue no matter what people are saying. What has been said with regard to that?
Sorry, come again, Edith, with your last question.
I mean, this is with regard to the standard gauge railway tender. Two committees are expected to table their findings in Parliament. Have we any idea what may be contained in those submissions?
Well, it is not clear what the Public Investments Committee and the other committee investigating this particular standard gauge railway tendering process will be having to say on that particular issue. But what we have heard clearly, like you mentioned, from the Jubilee Coalition, from the President himself, is that despite all the questions that have been raised about the tendering process for this multi-billion Chinese-funded project, is that it will go on despite these questions. They have asked anyone with concrete evidence to be able to come out. So we shall be waiting to see what the two committees of Parliament will be tabling in those reports, and see what reaction that elicits from especially the minority coalition in Parliament, that is CORD, who have said they will fight tooth and nail to be able to fight what they called institutionalized corruption inside the Jubilee government. They did say that yesterday in their PG group meeting. It was one of their main resolutions after that retreat in Naivasha, saying that they will fight corruption in government. They singled out the standard gauge railway, saying it is one major project that harbors a lot of corruption, and they did say that they will fight that. So it will be interesting to see how both sides of the Parliament, of the National Assembly and Senate as well, react to this. Standard gauge railway is one of those reports that will be bringing a showdown in both houses. Another thing also is the TJRC report, which will be brought to Parliament later on in this session. Another one is the Westgate Terror Probe report, which is also expected to be tabled in Parliament. Those are some of the key issues that will be debated in this session that Kenyans should be looking out for. And another thing to point out very quickly as I wind up is that the President will not be addressing Parliament as it reopens, as is tradition. It will be doing that in the next 2 weeks or so.
All right. Thank you very much, Ben Kitili, our political editor, coming to us live from Parliament, where he will be following the resumption of Parliament sessions, the second session after their holiday break.